freight efficiency with NACFE's Mike Roth and friends.
In episode 125, we have joining us Adam Klauber. He's Chief Sustainability Officer at World Energy, where he talks about the rebirth of World Energy, the importance of education about fuel types, and the need for voluntary choice when it comes to fuel solutions. He also talks about the benefits of drop-in fuel solutions, why renewable diesel is a great solution for trucking, and about why a diverse approach to decarbonization makes sense. Today we have joining us Adam Klauber. Adam is Chief Sustainability Officer at World Energy, and we'll get into exactly what World Energy does here in a minute. It's exciting to have you on, Adam. I mean, we've been friends a long time, business acquaintances. Our paths sort of went different ways. We hadn't talked in a while, and then in the last year or so, we've had the reason to spend a little time together. So welcome. Thanks for being on, Adam.
It's great to be here, Mike.
So I was thinking about when we became friends, and that, I've always asked every guest and, forced the two of us to figure this out. So do you remember when and how we became friends? I know it goes back a ways, Adam, so it's challenging.
Yeah. So it was shortly after Carbon War Room joined the Rocky Mountain Institute. And with that combination, I got hired to lead the aviation group within that effort. And you were already working with Ned Harvey, and RMI was supporting work in mines, work in methane, right? And work in shipping as well as trucking and aviation.
Yeah, that's right. So that would have been about 2014, I would assume. The Carbon War Room, for those of you who don't know, that was a Richard Branson startup that was looking to decarbonize lots of different industries. And so I remember saying, heck, we're trying to do that in trucking. Why don't we become your trucking arm? And that was successful. And that's when we met Adam as then Carbon War Room kind of merged with Rocky Mountain Institute back at the time. Was aviation in your career and experience when and tell me a little more about that particular opportunity.
Yeah. So before RMI, I worked actually for the federal government at a place called the U.S. Department of Transportation Volpe Center. So the Volpe Center is the think tank for transportation projects. And I focused almost exclusively on the Federal Aviation Administration and working on how to decarbonize their operations. So I looked at their buildings and identified opportunities for energy efficiency and to save emissions and water use. And then started to get involved on the aircraft side with how can we use emissions accounting and some of the powerful tools we had to measure to incentivize better flights and less fuel burn. I just started to look into that and then found out about opportunities in the consulting realm. So I was working with the consulting firm ICF, and airports were going quickly green, and they needed help with their sustainability plans. So I ended up helping to build their program and support airports like Los Angeles World Airports with across their sustainability activities.
Yeah, it's interesting. So that would probably have everything from facilities to ground equipment to the planes themselves and so forth. I mean, these projects that you're bringing up, I would gather get big before they get focused, right? There's lots of different ways emissions are created, and you got to be careful you're not trying to do too much, would be my quick guess on some of that. But yeah, I know Volpe well. I've worked with Volpe and on a few projects. They do a lot of trucking safety work, and then that safety work sort of overlaps into efficiency.
Yeah, and one of the projects actually led a project looking at emissions from truck crashes, and it was a combination of using a modeling tool for traffic simulation called TSIS Coursum with the EPA MOVES model. So what we found is trucks are pretty darn safe with the way they're operated, but when they do have accidents, there's a lot of traffic queue, and the backup creates a lot of emissions.
maybe describe your role now. Why has your career brought you to this job? What about this role and this thing has you most excited, and maybe has you the right person to do the job, Adam?
I think my yes, strong belief, a borderline religion, is the philosophy that voluntary choice and giving people or companies the option to do something that is the right way to do things or a better way to do things is important. So, like the voluntary market, when it comes to emissions reduction, is key, and there are some strong examples. So, it's the EPA had the Energy Star program, and hopefully we'll see that make a comeback someday. But that's responsible for literally billions of tons of emissions reductions, all through providing consumers the choices to get more efficient models. And so that was a kind of guiding philosophy to figure out how we can tap into these voluntary actions to drive emissions reductions.
So tell us about World Energy. What is the company? What do you do? What's your aspirations? Because I feel like there's a lot of aspirations around the company, and this might be just like the very early adolescent days or even toddler days of the organization.
Yeah, you're right. And partially because we've gone through maybe like a rebirth or a re-identity period where the first focus was on biodiesel and trying to figure out how to make that work. Our CEO, Gene Jabolis, started the company over 25 years ago and decided to just wanted to focus on renewable solutions to figure out how to make those work. And trading was part of the background. And eventually, he got into refining and saw the value with understanding the operations better and driving down carbon intensity with the processes and the operations. And then there were opportunities to get into new products like renewable diesel for trucks because those even offered more operational benefits, not having to worry about blends as much, where you could go up to 99% RD, and also could have other interesting products for sectors like aviation. So World Energy uh, sees itself as a decarbonization company and a way to unlock solutions that are difficult that the oil majors, for whatever reason, may not decide to pursue because the econs aren't as good as fossil fuels, or because they have so much in the way of sunk costs with their current capital assets and refineries. So World Energy sees an opportunity to grow renewable fuels, to do it for aviation, for trucking, for shipping, and we operate some production plants, and then also are building out operations for wind energy. We've got a major project off the coast of Newfoundland, and that project eventually may be supplying electrofuels, so power for electrofuels. So I think the focus of our company has been on renewable fuels, and then in terms of lately, new focus or added focus has been on how do you work with insets? How do you work with the environmental attribute certificates, right? The emissions reductions when some of the operators can't pay for them, like the carriers, for example, but their customers might be able to on the business side. Like, for example, if you've got an airline that's flying people and cargo, that airline might not be able to cover the full cost of the fuels, but maybe their tech partners and customers on the tech side or management consultants and pharma customers, et cetera, those companies may be able to cover the premium, but you could only do it with a credit system.
So, here at NACFE, we're really committed to help the industry with sort of a common language, and it's real helpful. Before you can kind of scale something, you have to understand it and believe in it, and kind of understanding is part of it. So we're really is the term here we should use is renewable liquid fuels. Is that sort of the what is there a common term for these things? I mean, like in trucking, we got renewable natural gas, and that's not what we're talking about here. So
Yeah.
are we are we sort of talking about renewable liquid fuels here when we think about biodiesel, renewable diesel, sustainable airline fuels, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, because the one of the key points to that is it's a drop-in solution, right? So you don't have to change out the equipment. You don't need new infrastructure. The trucks can operate the same way, and the aircraft can operate the same way. So I think that's a good distinction.
Yeah, and you said it earlier. So, renewable diesel is, tend to call it a more refined product where, it's a real drop in, whereas biodiesel has, gelling concerns and some other characteristics. So, as we just completed Run on Less Messy Middle, we had a truck that's using that tended to use mostly renewable diesel because they fueled up at pilots in California, and that was tend to be either a very high blend of renewable diesel or near 100% renewable diesel. And then we had a second truck in Topeka, Kansas that was running very high levels of biodiesel with a dual fuel solution. That was an Optimus solution where, they I call it like flushed the lines before and at the very beginning and the end of the route with petroleum diesel or conventional diesel or whatever the blend is that they have in one tank. But the predominance of the trip is run with 100% or 99% biodiesel, so it has that benefit. So both of those are products that you might make or you do make, and as part of what you're advocating for and working on. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. And yeah, the RD is a better solution probably for more of the industry because you don't have to deal with the complicated operations that you described for the Run on Less event. So, but we do have some stake still in biodiesel plants in different locations across the U.S. and see the value. And one of the benefits is it's a lower cost product because it doesn't require the hydrogen that you need for renewable diesel, and that hydrogen adds cost and also decreases some of the carbon benefits unless you're using clean hydrogen.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, we're getting familiar with that as we look at even hydrogen as a complete truck fuel. So how's this going to go? I mean, how, we get asked all the time, well, how many of the trucks or what parts of the trucks or what kinds of trucks would this be best suited for? I think this is we are concluding, and thinking about this is it's a drop in, so it's, easier to utilize and so forth. So for those more difficult routes and parts of trucking that are hard to decarbonize, it'd be the teams that are driving lots of miles and are in all over the country where electrification is not going to be an option for a long time because you need super fast charging, and we need those charging locations in lots of places. Whereas, return to base trucking that might only do a few hundred miles a day, that might go electric quicker. So we don't see that, these renewable fuels needing to take care of the entire market. But I also, from a supply standpoint, I'm not so sure we've got enough of the feedstocks. That's kind of oftentimes what we hear to do it all anyway. I mean, we use like 45 billion gallons of fuel in trucking, and that's a lot. I don't know what the current production of bio and renewable is, but even if we, maybe got 10 or 20% of the transportation's use, that would be a lot of the decarbonization solution. So are those numbers kind of directionally right from what you see, Adam?
Yeah, that is sure spot on, Mike. We do not have enough sustainable feedstock, right, to cover all of trucking or the majority of trucking. Something that is interesting is you have when you run it's called the hydroprocessed esters and fatty acids, the HEFA process, it makes renewable diesel and it makes the sustainable aviation fuel, otherwise known as SAF. So these industries are really tied together. And the refiners are thinking, gosh, what's going to happen? Because eventually trucks may fully electrify, and then we're going to have this renewable diesel product. Even if we minimize the yield, there's still going to be some. So what are we going to do? And I think that's actually probably delayed some of the investment in plants where there's been concern, people have said, "Hey, we're going to electrify everything." So, well, what will that mean for the liquid renewable fuels? So there's some uncertainty that has maybe paused the investments in refineries, but also in the feedstocks, because we know that there are certain crops like cover crops, carinata, camelina, pennycress, to name a few. Those are sustainable. They can be grown with food crops, but the farmers are looking for a signal too that, look, there's going to be long-term demand for these renewable fuels.
Yeah, boy, I got to tell you, the work we're doing on electrification, it's going to take a long time. So I think we might be, I don't, I don't know exactly what that timing is that would be of a concern, but to me, that's, we've got a pretty long runway here. Now, I know these refineries are big expenses and, you can't turn them on overnight and they have a lot of cost, but I got to believe it's going to, there's going to be that line of that 45 billion gallons, the final 20% is going to be 30, 40 years from now. It's a long way from that. So I think that's why, we all believe that this is going to be a multi-fuel future, because we just need to be decarbonizing quicker, and there's going to be continued drive to do that than just following the electrification pathway. It's great that there's two markets, or maybe there's even more markets. I mean, renewable diesel, it can be used in trains and in maritime, right? So you've
Yep.
got so we kind of have trucking, maritime, planes, and trains. We have all these that burn a lot of petroleum diesel based fuel. So, they are likely markets for these products. And so let's assume that there's a demand, that there's a big demand. How will this play out? I mean, how would certain ones of these markets get more or less of the product?
So World Energy thinks that eventually the aviation will be the last sector with, say, durable demand,
Mhm.
because there are these other solutions. And as you mentioned, it's going to be a lot more of a, I say, diverse approach, where you're going to have certain regions that are going to need the liquid fuels, like you said, and certain types of use cases. Uh, but overall, there's a movement away from them. And because trucking has electrification, that might be the natural place to focus for the industry. And then similarly for shipping, because they can use some different fuels than aircraft can use, for example, like ammonia or green methanol. Both of those have been identified as viable options that are not as restrictive for feedstock. So the thought also is there may be lower willingness to pay in other sectors outside of aviation, and that the feedstock costs are high, which means the fuel costs also are high. So the long term belief is that aviation will still receive the liquid bio-based fuels for a while.
Mhm.
And yeah, it is good to hear from you as reinforcement that, look, it from these sectors like trucking, you're going to need liquid fuels for a while. So that shouldn't stop investment per se in these supplies.
Yeah, and I think there's, one of the things we're seeing in this moment is in trucking is not a complete retraction from the sustainability expectations and needs of the public, of consumers, of leaders, shippers, and they're looking for alternatives. That's why we did the messy middle. That's why we believe that
Mhm.
there are multiple solutions. I believe we can chew gum and walk at the same time. We can still be meeting with utilities and moving in electrification of trucks incredibly fast while also figuring this out, and moving forward. So I think there is opportunity there. There is the higher cost of production, but help me understand the transportation needs too, because I'm a little confused here. Let me tell you why I'm confused and see if you can help me. I mean, uh, you are investing in places that make biodiesel and renewable diesel. But I would imagine other companies in the segment are as well. So they might be looking at doing that. And I understand that there's plants now in California and in Louisiana. But why wouldn't there would also be plants emerge in the Midwest? I would think if the demand's there, there'd be different places where it would be. We already pay in our petroleum diesel price, a fair amount of money to transport the fuel from refineries to truck truck locations, whether it's a truck stop in Iowa or a truck depot in Ohio. So the transportation, in my mind, of shipping these biodiesel, renewable diesel shouldn't be any lot more expensive than petroleum, because we still have to move it long distances. We don't make diesel fuel in the middle of Iowa near that truck stop, so we already have to ship it there. Am I missing something in that, or are you close enough to that whole situation to help? Or
Y- Yeah, this is a great question, Mike. And for the renewable diesel supply chains are easier because it can go in, and there aren't considerations with performance, and a lot of actually is around beliefs rather than reality with the challenges of renewable fuels. On the aviation side, we've got fewer places, fewer pipelines to put the molecules in, and the many of the deliveries actually occur in truck. So from our Paramount facility, we are almost supply exclusively via truck, although we have a pipeline that is almost complete. So that is common for sustainable aviation fuel. Diesel, though, is moving pretty well through the conventional pipelines, and there's more entry points. One of the challenges that we have is around the pipeline operators. They want to have continuous supply. So uh, if you are producing renewable fuels, you've got to produce a lot of them to get onto their list. Uh, Otherwise, you're shut out, or you have surcharges that you have to pay that increase the cost to the user at the end of the pipe.
got
So
it?
yeah, so we're kind of in this transitional phase where we're bringing renewable fuels to the infrastructure. There are added costs that are a headache, and over time, those might get better as we scale up.
Let me make sure I understand this. Molecularly, renewable diesel is very similar to petroleum diesel, so you can
Yep.
mix them without any worries, right? So that blending can go on. I think you mentioned a little bit ago that education is a big thing. I mean, I was recently with I should probably not mention it. I was with an organization that was offering renewable diesel to truckers, and they were just that no one would take it, no one would use it. They were offering it at the same price as petroleum, but
Yep.
they wouldn't do it. And when they really discovered it, they were just so worried about gelling, so
Yep.
worried about its performance, and no matter what they tried to do, convincing them that that was shouldn't be a concern because of what it was. So that education on what renewable diesel is, what biodiesel is, what the blends are, because we end up with 5%, 20%, all kinds of different blends. That's just really confusing. So hey, I'm NACV's committing to helping with this education. We're gonna, as we work on run on less reporting and talking about what we found here, we're both ourselves are getting smarter on these fuels, and we're committing to help the industry understand them better, so we don't have those misunderstandings. It's just unfortunate. It's natural when you're in a change, when people just don't understand what we're looking at, but it's real.
Yeah. Well, another strong reason why we need NACV.
Well, yeah, it's a compliment. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And I think you're right. And when we see it, the same thing occurs throughout other fuels and other solutions as well. I mean, when we hear that, that the electricity grid is so coal based and this, that, and the other, and once we get a lot of the facts together around how renewable the grid has become, what's the opportunity, and it's getting cleaner, what's the opportunity where nuclear might play a bigger role, and of course people are on the fence as to whether that's a true renewable or not, or but anyway, it's better than in many aspects than petroleum or natural gas. So it's just interesting. They're coal. It's just interesting, and a lot of education needs to take place at the beginning of any sort of transformation. So we're running out of time, Adam. What's as you've done work or been watching sort of the trucking use case for the fuels that you're working on there at World Energy, what's something that you would like the trucking audience, some of which are going to listen to this, and some of which the people who do listen to it can tell others? What is it that you want the trucking industry to know, or freight, to know about what you're trying to do and how that could be helpful.
Well, Mike, as you said, greater familiarity and comfort with the product, that's great. That'd be a huge leap forward or benefit.
Mhm.
As you
Mhm.
said, I think the other piece is, look, air quality, despite what people might think about climate and views that were either, yeah, it's a big hoax, or which is the extreme side, or different degrees of belief in the risk. I think we all can agree that cleaner fuels are beneficial, especially around the communities that are close to the freeways and trucking depots, and the people who work with fuels. For all those reasons, a renewable fuel is also a better fuel because you've got fewer particulate matter emissions, right? So it's better for people's lungs, and that's another important benefit that isn't talked about as much, but really should be, because we all want healthier lives, and want to support livelihoods, reduce the potential for lung issues. And I think that is a benefit that you get from renewable diesel, with up to 90% particulate matter reductions, and something uh, that I think your audience really should know, as is something that they can consider. In addition to carbon reduction, you've also got air quality benefits.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, hey, Adam, thank you. This is timely, and some of our team might be reaching out to you as we continue to do our work on these fuels here at NACFE, and appreciate reconnecting. Thanks for being on, and good luck with everything you're doing.
Thank you, Mike. It's been fun, and look forward to talking with you again.
Freight Efficiency with NACFE's Mike Rosen Friends.